What's up? Let me start breaking down the value of certain NBA players. Um, ugh, Sorry about that. As you know, there's a ranking system when it comes to basketball. You have different levels of how you rank how you rank a player in terms of who's better than who. Now, since you can't see, let's say, a Michael Jordan versus a LeBron in the same era because they never played against each other. But what you can do is judge what they did from each era, right? And it's a rule system. You got role players, you got all stars, then you got superstars. Now, an all star is a guy you don't want to build a team around. He's a perfect second fiddle. He's like a Scotty Pippen, a guy like that. You know, a role player. I mean, there's role players. They probably get the the least respect in basketball, period, because nobody rates role players. They don't even have a list for greatest role players of all time. They don't even exist. Uh, so if you're a role player, you help a superstar win a championship because it's a team game. You're gonna have to understand the fact that you're not gonna get a bulk of that respect or that of that legacy. You're basically just helping a superstar's legacy, so to speak. You know what I mean? Because there's no ranking system. I never heard nobody say a role player is the GOAT. You know, so that leaves us with just superstars. Now, a superstar is a guy you build a franchise around, right? So you want to have that superstar. You want to put him in the best position to win. So you want to get pieces around that superstar. You build around that superstar. So when that superstar wins, he gets a bulk of the respect. Um, Also, he has to have a number two. Now, a number two is an all star. That's the guy that, the secondary guy, the second fiddle. Um, Jordan was the first fiddle. Scottie Pippen was the second fiddle, right? So that's why when uh, people talk about Jordan, they say Jordan got 6 championships, but nobody says Scottie Pippen has 6 championships, even though he does. But he gets less credit because he's a second fiddle. So majority of the respect goes to Michael Jordan. So with that being said, you have you have guys that I guess they rank players kind of different, but if you really look at it, a lot of people rank players the same way that I do because they go by your resume. You have to have MVPs, you have to have defensive player, first team. You have to have the individual accolades too. Okay, those do matter. I'm not saying they don't matter. They do matter. You have to have that on your resume. But to get to this next level of GOAT or elite status, you have to have one common thing that every player seems to have. That's championships. Okay, if you're a superstar player, there's no buts, there's no ifs. You have to have championships on your resume. This is more valid in basketball than any other sport. It's just how we program, how the rules of basketball or society rates basketball players. You know, if you got no championships and you're a superstar, you automatically out of discussion of being considered the GOAT. Damn, sorry for a minute. I don't know what I have a little sore throat, I guess. I'm drinking this stuff all the time, but yeah, where was I? Um, with that being said, this is why guys like James Harden, Greek Freak, they don't get the credit that a lot of people want them or their fanboys want them to get is because they got no championship. So they have no right to claim or be in the same status as a Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. Um, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. These guys are number ones and they got championships. You have to have that on your resume. All right, you have to be the team leader, you have to be the franchise guy, and you got to win championships. Now, once you win championships, you get rated. There's another system. You get put up against other champions, and this comes into play. How you won the championship, how you did it, and who you beat. All right, and then after that happens, it becomes a ring count. Okay, if a guy has, there's even a class for a number of championships. You ever notice guys that have like superstars that have like 6 championships or more? They're regarded a little higher than a guy that has probably, 2 or something like that. But I don't think ring count necessarily counts. You just have to have a championship to even be in discussion to compete against another champion. And what have you done in that era? Okay, because basketball is broken down into eras, like decades. And that decade that you're in your prime, you're supposed to dominate that decade. Like I said, Michael Jordan's probably the only superstar that dominated his era, didn't let a lot of other guys get championships. I mean, guys like Kareem, Magic, they lost to like Larry Bird, and back and forth. It's vice versa. And, the bad boy Detroit Pistons. Jordan was like the only guy in the 90s that dominated the whole era. I mean, you could make the case probably if he never retired that he could have won, he could have capped the whole decade off. But he actually owned the 90s. I mean, he stopped a lot of guys from winning championships. And you don't really see a lot of superstars today, rather the LeBrons, Kawhi Leonard's, Kevin Durant's. You don't see these guys stopping people from winning championships. Everybody seems to eat. Like Kawhi got championships under LeBron. Durant got championships under LeBron. Steph Curry got a championship in there. He stuck one in, under certain circumstances, but he still got it. So you got to give credit where credit's due. So, yeah, that's the criteria of how we rank certain players, and how can you put a certain guy in the top 5? He has to have all those things I said. He has to have a stack full resume with the MVPs. He has to dominate his decade, all that other stuff. But on the flip side today, he has to have championships. And outside of having championships, you have to beat people. Okay? You have to make a valid claim to why you're the best of that era, which is, when we say era, is a decade. And put it this way, outside of Michael Jordan, I think LeBron James dominated his era just as good, but not so, because Jordan won more than LeBron in a short period of time, and he did it in a more dominating way. This guy owned his decade. LeBron, it's hard to say, but you can't say he owned the decade, because he took a lot of losses. Yeah, going to the finals, throughout the whole decade, 8 years, is dominant without a question. So I don't want people to get mad at that. I love LeBron James. I love Kobe. I love Jordan. I love everybody. But my thing is, LeBron didn't dominate his era the same way Jordan did. Jordan stopped guys from winning. LeBron, everybody ate. Everybody got a little piece of the pie. That gets held against you. And going to the finals is great, but you have to count the losses too. You have to count the fact that there's a lot of big moments you didn't came through. And you have to look at both of the superstars' weak moments. Like Jordan's probably weakest moment in the playoffs was getting swept by the Celtics, but the Celtics was a super team at the time. And LeBron's weakest moment was probably the moment that we never forget, which is 2011. And he was on the super team, and he got beat by Dirk and a bunch of role players. And even though those role players on the Dallas Mavericks, they had over 5 guys, probably or more, 5 guys that averaged double digit in points. A lot of people don't know that. The Miami Heat only had 3 guys averaging double digit in points. But those 3 guys were supposed to be so dominant and so devastating that they should have overpowered that team and won. But they didn't. And LeBron had the weakest finals ever. that alone separates him from Jordan because Jordan never performed like that on the biggest stage, you know. And you just gotta give credit where credit's due, you know. I do a LeBron James versus Jordan breakdown a little more different. I mean, I think LeBron James is the top 5 greatest basketball player of all time, but I can't put him over Jordan because the simple fact that, you know, like I just said, Jordan was just more dominant than LeBron. And you can make a case Jordan was a better on-ball defensive player, one-on-one defensive player than LeBron James is. LeBron James is a great defender, but he's better off the ball. That's how he could get you, you know, off the chase down blocks, which is amazing. I mean, those chase down blocks is crazy. But I'm gonna leave it at that. So that's my criteria of ranking players. It's a little bit of everything, you know, and you have to, and also you have to be Finals MVP because that proves that you're the best player on your team. You know, you're the most dominant player in your team, and the main reason why your team is winning. You know, at least that's the narrative built around it. But you have to have that on your resume, and you know, I'll leave it at that. Peace.